All right, what's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. Subscribe or die trying. You see the thumbnail. The funny thing about haters, Steven Crowder, comedian or whatever, uh, has got online, said some, said and done some pretty racist stuff. Okay, it's comedy, so you say. Okay, but it started with the black farmers, right? And what are black farmers? How are they getting money? They're gonna plant this cone, and yeah, you can plant a Hennessy tree. Well, funny story about farming, right? Because he was like, black people farm. Well, my great grandfather was actually a farmer, right? And my great grandfather owned land, cattle, an oil rig, and the oil in the land. Great grandfather doing pretty well for himself. My great grandfather passed away. And when my great grandfather passed away, in the town of Homer, Louisiana, which is, town when I forgot the show where the guys were shooting the alligators in the water, but that's that town. So when my great grandfather passed away, my great grandmother basically inherited everything, right? And what wound up happening was the white people in Homer tried to kill my great grandmother. So she wound up running to New Orleans, where I was ultimately born, and she lived in the St. Thomas Projects. So she couldn't be found. She subsequently died, I think, mid to late 80s. So this is a long, long time ago. No, because I was a kid visiting my grandmother in the projects in the St. Thomas Projects. Had no idea that's why she was there. I wound up being like 21 when I found out, because 2021, something like that. Because ironically, a family, has, my parent, my mother and her siblings wound up splitting a check that it was either $9,000 total or $9,000 a piece, because they wanted to pay back, the oil proceeds over the last 20, 30 years, which is, either 27,000 or $9,000. And when I found out, I was disgusted. I was like, them people lying to y'all. But they didn't go into it because they wasn't tripping about, quote unquote, they didn't care about business like that, right? And then, so fast forward to my grandfather. My grandfather um, was a Korean War vet, and he came home or whatever, a little shell chop, and bought a home. So he thought, when you were black buying homes back then, the banks wouldn't give you loans. So either white people, and AKA Jewish people, like they seem to be the same sometimes in one distinction, but it was white people in New Orleans. But in Chicago, it was Jewish people too. Um, so they underwrote the contract, and basically he paid for the property two, three times over, and then they snatched it from him, and he was supposed to own it, right? So he was a quote unquote veteran, right? Uh, so now you go to my mother and me. So you got two generations of the quote unquote American dream snatched away. So my mom starts from scratch because my grandmother passed away uh, in New Orleans. Subsequently years later, so she died in the mid 2000s. Not mid 2000s. I'm sorry, mid 90s. Uh, and then you got my mother, and then my generation. So, and at the time, one of my family members was a millionaire, so they didn't. It was like, forget it. We already get it. A multi-millionaire rather. So when people go, oh man, that was a long time ago. And yeah, okay. And then I appreciate Steven Crowder, because his whole Asian rant, it showed, this last week has shown the Asian community, it ain't really us messing with y'all like that. It's white folks. And Steven Crowder could, and his friends, prove it. So the interesting thing about haters is they gotta lie. Like the stuff that they were talking about could easily be Googled, easily be searched. It's not a big deal. But they're haters. So, and they're going to sit there as haters. And the interesting part about them is people try to figure out what does all of this insecurity and hate come from? Y'all thought that people weren't like this or something. We already know they are. So just don't have another uh, tragic American moment like 9/11, and then white people say, let's come together. And then other people going to go, nah, we've been there, done that with you, player. No, thank you. Because these people lie about history. They lie about being honest. They lie about being honest. They lie about history. They lie about their positions. And then one day they get upset because people are receiving money. They don't want people to get any kind of money in America. And how they don't deserve anything, but all of a sudden, because it chews at maybe you've been getting subsidized this whole time, which is basically the point, you know. And that's what I mean. The funny thing about haters is the hate always comes in when finance and money comes into America, which means you want other groups of people to be broke. And if they're not broke, you're disgusted at the fact that they're not broke, because this was supposed to be a land built for quote unquote white people. And the other thing about even with YouTube, it's funny how when you're white you could do all this stuff and have a huge channel and you're not even shadow banned. But if you're black, they sure know how to throttle those numbers down, because this made it a whole way to national news. And he didn't get taken down for hate speech, so, okay. You know, YouTube is what it is. Life is what it is. America is what it is. And it just proves it again. But let me talk about other topics now. Like, share, subscribe, and die trying. Peace.